Okay, maybe following up on topic that Hans has touched, that information is still not knowledge. One could also say the opposite, that knowledge is still not information, or that information itself is shaped already by existing knowledge. So claiming that information is still not knowledge might be a perspectival thing, something that relates to the subjective experience rather than the way the institutional relation or structural relation between information and knowledge works. I will be talking about about the work of digitization related to the two projects presented here in the exhibition. One is the digitization of a number of books done by a community gathering at our cultural center in Zagreb, Mama, and another one is the subset of that digitizing effort, the digitization of a journal, Journal Praxis. It was a sort of a group, intellectual group, and one could call it also a tendency within Yugoslav Marxism, with strong leaning toward humanist Marxism, starting with the reading of early Marx, discovered relatively late, and it's one of the few important legacies, I would say, of Yugoslav period after the Second World War. But I would like to start with another book that was neither digitized within KOK nor within Praxis. It's a rather short essay by Susan Buck-Morss. Okay, so this is the Croatian translation, but given that I don't have my computer, I can't show it in my Calibri library. It was published initially in Critical Inquiry and is available through JSTOR. I obtained it illegally, and it's an essay of some maybe 30 pages, trying to give an overview how political economy as a system developed from a certain representation of the economy as totality. So her claim is that there was no such thing, no such object as political economy before it was constituted as a certain insight or knowledge, and that was only made possible by tools of representation. In particular, Canet's tables, which were devised for the French court, showing the relations between the segments of the French national economy. So her claim is that basically before those tables, the king had no notion that national economy is a system. It was something just the production and the exchange done within the borders of the kingdom, of the monarchy, but not that it has its internal relations and that internal relations are structured. And only through this tool, national economy's totality was constituted. It also played an important role in the period for the French economy, because Great Britain was on the rise, or England was on the rise, because the development of agrarian capitalism was taking hold and basically spawning or creating levels of productivity that no other monarchy in Europe could compete with. And then the question of how do you transition to the capitalist mode of production became a highly relevant question for other monarchies of Europe, whose power was built more on trade or plunder. And I won't go into issues around the agrarian origins of capitalism. I think that's an interesting topic to explore. I have some books in my library related to that, books by Alan Makes-Wood and Robert Brenner, who are the main proponents of this theory of agrarian origins of capitalism that tries to basically extrapolate when is it that market no longer was just an opportunity but was a forceful condition. So when did this transformation happen between people just trading and people having to trade their labor in order to be able to survive? No, that's for them what constitutes capitalist relation as opposed to any prior mode of production, and that's also their argument against the ideas of that capitalism came about through sort of normalized evolution of trade. It intensified, became globalized, and tada, capitalism was born. They say no when you try to extrapolate what the structural logic of capitalism is. Market is coercion. You have to work in order to be able to survive. You need to sell in order, or enter the market in order to be able to survive. That only happened due to specific circumstances of the British feudalism, English feudalism, and it's only there that the capitalism or its specific logic was born and was formed throughout the world because of its higher productivity compared to feudalist economies of the rest of Europe, including France. But Susan Buck-Morse's article, I can give you the article later, is interesting because it's trying to show how the discipline of political economy developed both as an object and an epistemology between Quenet and then the rise of marginalist theory of Austrian type. I would say that there is specific topology to knowledge that relates to social relations. For the two projects that I'm talking about, I think that the formative fact is that Yugoslavia, socialist Yugoslavia, was premised on socialist revolution that tried to create a different socioeconomic model. It was a process of modernization as well, but also there was initial expropriation and basically there was an attempt to create an economic model which would allow for a socialist economy in an environment that was eminently unstable after the Second World War. So there was no clear understanding what is the model to implement. That model had to be developed. And that model was developed through a practice of debate, relations between intellectual forces, relations to the former bourgeoisie, to petit bourgeoisie, and all of these things came into play in order to materialize in what became known as self-management socialism, which was then the model, shorthand description of the model that Yugoslavia chose. But then that model it wasn't anything pre-given. It was something that it had its own evolution, and this evolution was conditioned both by external forces and the internal capacity to understand how you can respond to economic developments externally, the problems of non-capitalist accumulation in a newly founded national economy and things like that. So things I think constituted over time, and discourse was fundamental to understanding how Yugoslav socioeconomic model developed and I would say ultimately fell apart. I subscribe to the thesis that Yugoslavia fell apart primarily because of socioeconomic reasons and inability to sustain political hegemony over time given the socioeconomic crisis that started to aggravate in the early 70s, but was already nascent in the 60s for reasons of problems of accumulation. Where do you get capital to build the economy and to continue modernization that was done after the Second World War. So enough of talking. So I'm going to show you. This is COC, or Catalog of Liberated Books. That's Praxis. So this is COC, Catalog of Liberated Books. It's a catalog of very random things, but most of it is Marxism and political economy, some labor studies. Reasons why we started with scanning these books is primarily that we wanted to bring back the material that would allow for revisiting and understanding of Yugoslav development. And much of that literature can be found, but is not really readily available. And the reason for that is that in 1991, as nationalists came into power in Croatia and Yugoslavia split up, there was purging of libraries. Two things were purged from libraries. One is literature that Croatian nationalists saw as belonging to other Yugoslav cultures, primarily Serbian. Their cultural political project was to establish a clear-cut cultural identity of Croatia as opposed to cultural identities of other Yugoslav nations, in particular Serbian, with whom we share more than just the language. And the other thing that was suppressed from the libraries was literature that dealt in socialism and Marxism. So in a way, the organon of the societal development over the previous 45 years. This repression of books was rather a coordinated effort. Some 2.5 million books were destroyed, and even the Minister of Finance of then government said that he'll pay to the libraries to get rid of those books. So if this speaks to something, it speaks to very much to the fact that political circumstances, political structure define very much what is contained within libraries and within archives. So in that sense, the nominal idea that there is enshrined in public libraries, that there is that there is universal knowledge, and that if it's good enough, deserves archiving and to be kept for the posteriority as patrimony, is something very relative. I would say that it's not a concept that should be fully abandoned, or that's a principle that is suspended, but rather that it's one that exists only once you formalize it through certain practice. You know? So in that sense, it's a strategic concept rather than a universal concept itself. Okay, so maybe just to show what there is, I think one large part of what was digitized were the volumes of Yugoslav translation of Marx Engels Werke. And for instance, I can show you these are the 3 volumes of manuscripts on the theories of surplus value that Marx wrote in order to prepare the writing of Capital. So it's 2,000 pages. So recently, the Croatian Prime Minister posted that he read Piketty's Capital, and that it's not concocted work as Marx's Capital was, and that it's not short breath books such as Capital. Marx worked on it for 25 years. So these volumes were part of the Croatian Socialist Party's library, physical copies that were digitized, that was left abandoned to rot, and the volumes were collected by the students from the student occupation at the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, Arts and Humanities in Zagreb, with whom we have done much of this digitization. But the library contains also books that are more germane to the development of socioeconomic thought and policy in Yugoslavia, such as some works of Edvard Kardelj or Boris Kidrić. And then some later analysis, like in the 70s, when it was already the question of how do we transform the socialist system in order to survive. Let's say we show this says problems of theory and practice of socialist commodity production in Yugoslavia. No? You see all of the contradictions already in the title. The other part of significant part of the library are just books that are not available in Zagreb. As I said, it was scanned by people who are students or were students to a large degree. And some of the books are really hard to come by in Zagreb, be it for economic reasons or be that they are out of print and just rare. So I don't know. I can show you. This is Verso's book by Guillermo Incarceri, who's mostly dealing with the analysis of national economy and the owner of doing that. So, or I don't know what else. For instance, there's Trandutao. Okay, I'm finishing. So the second part of this scanning process was digitizing praxis. I already said a little bit about praxis. It was significant insofar as it functioned as a hub for exchange between East and West, mostly Marxist sociologists, philosophers, critical thinkers would gather. It did follow very much in the footsteps of Frankfurt School, so it included participation of Marcuse, Bloch, later Habermas, Charlotte Rappel, but also some very different strands, people coming from the East, such as Kolakowski or Lefebvre. So very different and very broad scope of, open scope of thinking. And it existed in the period 63-74. They organized Portugal Summer School. And it was just not available. So I scanned it primarily to make it available for historical study. It includes both domestic edition, international edition, some of the physical copies you can see there. We brought them along, and then pocket editions and stuff like that. No, so it's around 100 volumes. No, okay, so I'll finish here, and maybe then Barok and me can demonstrate scanners themselves.
Maybe they should.
But we would have to relocate from there.
But there's maybe a question?
Yeah, if there are questions.
Somebody stole a microphone and is having a conference somewhere else right now? In the park?
Oh, we don't need them. It's on.
It's poker.
Did somebody see it? I don't know, maybe you know it. We actually tried to invite also Dimitri Kutov and David, and they are working. They produced the Lifshitz Institute because their whole interest is in redefining, re-evaluating Marxism, because they say Marxism today is a very Western idea of Marxism, and so they are going to. So their interest is very much in rereading other aspects of Marxism, and one is this person Lifshitz, which is very controversial, but they try to make new translations of it, and just to republish the things, and it could be interesting maybe also for them to work in a context where this is getting online and accessible. Do you know them?
No.
But this was just an information. Somebody else?
Okay, let's get our hands dirty.
Yeah.
They are located in different cities. That over there is from Ghana. This one's from, well, it will stay here at the Academy Schloss Solitude, and this one's from Zagreb. There are a couple of more. One was created in Berlin, another one in Calafó, which is an anarchist center near Barcelona. And Belgrade, yes, for the Hatla in Belgrade. They were created by Voja Antonić, an old school engineer, computer engineer from Belgrade, who created the first kit computer, personal computer in Yugoslavia in the 80s. But he helped us, or we helped him rather redesign the existing designs and do these scanners. Scanners themselves are just part of the scanning process. They are step one. It consists of 2 or 3 steps, I would say. One is photographing a book. So that's what's really done on scanners. Second is then transforming the images of the pages of the book into smaller files, usually monochrome files, that allow for easier OCRing, so optical character recognition. It's the process of transformation of the image of a text into this text. And in a third step, this extrapolated text is then laid under the image of the text and composed into a PDF. So I would say that those are 3 general steps. We have devised a more complex workflow where these books get uploaded then to Lütgert and Argorg and are kept in a Caliber library. So they are well organized, first of all, and then that they are made available. What did we say? You'll demonstrate how the scanners work, and now demonstrate the post-production process. The 2 of us have also written a manual, which is on that computer there, but we can, I think it's also on memoryoftheworld.org. And it covers, in principle, what the process of scanning is, and then looks at the specific tools that we have chosen. We have tried to devise a workflow that is fully based on free software, but it just doesn't work so good fully on free software, namely the OCRing turns out better, much better, using proprietary tools, and for this we use one piece of software developed by Russian hackers called Abi Fine Reader. Tesseract, the best existing tool, free software tool for OCRing, is okay with recognizing characters, but then is bad with composing them back into the text. So what you first do is, when you have an image of the text, the software tries to understand what the characters are, then transforms them or has them as glyphs, and then tries to transform them back into a certain typeface, and then set it into paragraphs. And this last step of setting the text into paragraphs just doesn't work, so you lose the linearity of the text. You've got individual words, but when you try to copy and paste, then it turns out like concrete poetry. It's good, I think, but just...
It's kind of getting there soon.
Okay. So we look forward to that development. But then, okay, so let's go to the demonstration.
So I also know that some people brought books to scan, so maybe we can do those. We don't have to. One thing is that people often get really disappointed is that, but there's a lot of you have to flip pages by yourself. So a book scanner is not robotic, so you have to do work by yourself. But it's really soothing. It's kind of a Zen activity. So you should never consider it as something that's time consuming. Here there will be a problem because of the light. That's why there is we also have the black cloth, which, now I'm not going to put it full because but the whole idea is to kind of minimize the reflection. So this way there is a less reflection. This is really weird with this mic. So practically, because there are 2 cameras, and And before we start scanning, it's important to set everything up properly. And there are two border situations in which the kind of the distance between the camera and the book is the thickest. So like that, I usually like to start by kind of figuring out the best, like the best zoom in relation to the book by these two border situations. So as you see, the scanner consists of this plexi plate which goes up and down when you press the button and kind of presses the book, so the pages are open as much as possible. This position of the book, or like 90% angle, actually enables that the book is scanned without damaging a lot a spine, which is important if you borrow the book from the library or something, or so from a friend, and you kind of wanted to give it back without it looking way too damaged. Oops. So it is very difficult to get like completely same image from the both sides, but it's important to pay attention that you kind of, that like the more or less the similar size of the image is everything. This is important because then when you compile the whole PDF, if there's a large difference between the size of an image, then the kind is going to jump visually. So, and when you kind of figure out these two border positions, it's also good to see some in between. And then sometimes you have to, of course. Just to see if everything is okay. So the sensor has a couple of buttons. You can see because this one was made for event 2 years ago. This one was made last summer. So you can see that they're like the development of the kind of every new model has a new kind of upgrade. So what is important is that although there is not really big, or you can deal with it if there is like a lot of repeated images. What is important, especially when you start, is that you have like a zero, like the completely empty SD cards when you start. And also sometimes you have to kind of put this up and down and kind of check left and right. So sometimes actually it's good to have this when you, so see when you I press longer, and it does not take a photo, because usually it's made that when you press, the plate goes down, take photos, and goes up. But so these two other buttons and this one are made really so that you know, like that you can have this manipulation space that you can, especially in the middle of the book, it can get kind of complicated because of the thickness, so that you need to press down, then kind of make it, and then. I don't know how.
Those two buttons are still not programmed.
Okay. So when they will be programmed, it will be like here, so that once you are already, so that you don't, so you kind of stretch the book maximum, so you don't have to go up and down. You press again the button, and then it takes photos. So because it's like it would happen, you know, that you go up and this happens, like so. Everything that you kind of managed to scratch it did not. So this is practical, and you practically kind of figure these things out when you start scanning. So these are all the preparations. So you have to kind of get to know how the book behaves in relation to the scanner, the size, and the thickness. So you kind of so this all like the more time you kind of focus, you spend on preparing, you then kind of the workflow then later goes better, because you know that you kind of broke it on more places and stuff. And then after when you do this properly, then the rest is Zen. So in order to, in the later steps to have everything, the best is that before you really now you set up everything, before you start scanning, is to erase all the images that exist on the SD card, because the part of the process is then later of transforming images to the hard drive to do a post-production is automated, so then it's good to have like a clean start.
I interject. A fundamental problem with scanning books is getting the image as straight as possible. There are distortions that might be resulting either from the page not being fully pressed against the platen, or either is the barrel distortion in the lens of the camera. So I guess the first one is kind of easy to address. The second one is a problem. We have chosen lenses on these cameras that have relative to the zoom that we are using them at, least barrel distortion. So barrel distortion is in the image, the straight line would not be straight, but would be concave, really, at the ends. And you would, so the preference is to have text straight, so that in the end, the lines would be straight, but then also OCR is easier if there is less distortion.
So now I can start scanning. Does anybody want to do it?
Okay then.
Okay, so
I'm in the Zen position.
yes, you're in this position.
We come back and
It's okay. There is like a.
Maybe it's better to take it.
Not necessarily, because actually the cameras are kind of trying to kind of take the most of the center. So usually there is.
And then.
Yeah.
So see you later.
So at one point it will be possible, you can So at one point it will be necessary to kind of adjust the position of the plate, but you can.
And does it look okay?
It looks okay, yeah, yeah. So practically this is how it goes. It takes, depending on the width of the book, between 15 or 45 minutes if you are digitizing a book that I once did, which is called Non-Alignment. It's 999 pages about non-alignment. I'm doing my research on the non-aligned movement and relation to the production of space. And surprisingly little literature on non-alignment exists. Surprisingly little people remember that this, what is in German called Blockfrei, still exists, and there was. And then I said, okay, I will just digitize everything that comes to my hand. And this one was the toughest, 999 pages. Which, but then maybe we can go to the next step, because this is how.
Okay, maybe I can.
Yeah, you can continue. Yeah, or you can do
say
it later.
something about the book.
Yeah, you can say. Yeah.
No, I just I didn't bring the book especially from scanning, but it's, the coincidence is that it's a book about it's a French translation from author which and the title is Orality, From Orality to Texts.
Perfect. Okay, so now we can move to the stage.
Okay, so the transfer files is through internet. So you take the cards out of the cameras and then place them into SD card reader on this computer. It's somewhat automated because there are a couple of tasks that we want to do, transformations. One is rotating the images because they are in the landscape. We would like to have them in portrait. And the other thing is collating them. So that's the files from the right-hand camera and left-hand camera come in the order of pages. That's why it's important that there are no previous files on the SD cards because they would mess up the order. No, that's very practical. But a friend has written a script that automates a lot. So it says you write the name of the book or whatever, and it creates a folder and then transfers the files and then asks for the other card. And okay. So once the files are transferred, they will be rotated and renamed so that they in the order. So page 1 JPEG, page 2 JPEG. And now the first step in the post-production is transforming these large JPEGs from the camera into much smaller, mostly monochrome images. That's an important step because we want to, in a way, remove everything that's not text or images in the book, and we want to reduce the size of the final file because each of the images from the camera has like 6 megabytes. So imagine a book of 200 pages, it will be over a gig, whereas you would really want a book to have somewhere between, I don't know, 500 kilobytes to maybe 15 megabytes, not more. And for that we use a free software called ScanTailor. It's no longer in development, but it's pretty much a finalized tool. It's free software where you input the JPEGs and it does then text area recognition on its own. Let it set to work. It selects content, deskews the pages, splits them, so we can work also with the flatbed scanner, or if you're working with a single camera, that's also an option. The only problem with the single camera is that you have to do the skewing, which, well, available softwares are not, tools are not good at. Google has that way of scanning the books. They're just opening pages and the cameras are shooting the pages, and then they can do good straightening of the pages because they have just software that is good enough for Google Earth. You know, they can transform the 3D into 2D projection much better than what exists around. And this is a step where we do basically visual check if all of the pages are there, if something has gone wrong, and so we have to go page by page, select or deselect content. So it basically tries to figure out where the text is. And for the next steps, what I'm always trying to do is get this text area of the same size on each page, though there might not be text, because I'll be positioning the text area in the middle of the file that I'll be creating, so I don't want the text to go up and down as you go through the pages. I want it to be relatively stable and of the same size.
Great.
The next step is that you create margins to the text, so everything else gets cut out. These are the initial images, no? And we want this whole thing, this area, cut out. It will then draw new margins if we want them, whatever the size. So if we are doing it for a reading device, we would like to use the screen real estate to the max. So you would preferably use 0 margin. But if you are reading this on the computer and maybe want to have a margin to annotate into or something else, then you might leave some. You position the text, and then there is finally the output. There are 3 modes of output. One is just black and white, so monochromatic image, which has the least size. You can, for pages where there are illustrations, I don't think there are any pages here with the illustrations, you can choose mixed mode, where it tries to figure out itself where the image is and then takes the image in full color, whereas the rest is kept monochromatic. Or it can be fully color grayscale. How are we doing with time? We have to finish. Do we? Or? Okay. Nobody's protesting. I'm fine with that. Which I typically use for instance, front page and maybe the last page, so that there is kind of a good representation of what the book is, that it's not just monochromatic. And if it's a lot of color on front page, then it won't also look very good. Now, once this is done, we get TIFF files. I can show you some on the files that Dubravka has already completed. So this is the front page with very little information, this one.
The TIFF file.
And these are now the TIFF files where there is no text and welcome.
Why TIFF?
Yes, why TIFF?
Why TIFF? Scan Taylor does TIFF, but TIFF is typically used in archiving also. I don't know for what reasons.
Yeah.
Marcell, do you know for what reasons?
I know, but I noticed.
It's quite easy.
For why?
Yeah, but
what
still,
reason is
JPEG
TIFF
compression.
preferred?
Yes, I
No
know.
compression.
JPEG
It
compression.
has less, loses less quality of image because it makes less compression, or the compression algorithm is different, and then it's when you do things for print, you do in TIFF.
Yeah, no, this is why we're asking,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
we know.
No, but it's not exactly right. In graphic design, for instance, now we used to work with JPEG because the compression became more and more better than before.
JPEG,
No, but you don't want compression, and also in TIFF, after you reduce it to 2 channels, black and white, there is no
Yes.
a gradient or anything
Of
like
course.
that. So TIFFs are just like
So that's
200
right.
kilobytes out of when you
for
start
the-
with 6 megabytes.
So it's like color images, you
Yeah.
make the difference.
Because I'm not sure if you can avoid compression in JPEG.
I think no.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Okay.
So you need yeah.
So now comes the choice. We could do it in free software or proprietary software. Free software, it's not a wrong piece of software. There are plenty of tools that integrate Tesseract on Linux. I use GScan to PDF, which integrates Tesseract, can do OCR and then composite the results into a PDF. And it works fine. It's just that OCR is not very good because of Tesseract, not because of this software. And then it can also do EPUB, but that's the problem with EPUB, that it's a dynamic format, whereas we are scanning pages which are not dynamic, they are fixed. So in a way, PDF already does a good representation, but should you need to create an EPUB for yourself, you can do that, for instance, in Calibra. It also has a sort of basic EPUB editor where you can check out the pagination and, you know, when you have a header or footer, because that obstructs with the dynamic flow of text. No? Or proprietary way, it's double time proprietary. We have to run it in a virtual box on Windows. No? We use Abbey Fine Reader, which is a piece of software developed by some guys in Russia. And it's relatively good. It creates smaller PDFs than GScan to PDF. I guess it does its own reduction of quality of the images, but it does very good OCR. And we are totally happy with the results. And it can also do some of the desqueuing, so straightening out of text lines. Okay. Now, I guess I haven't transferred the files into virtual boxes shared folders, so we won't see anything here. But, I mean, it's pretty automatic how Abbey Fine Reader works. You just input TIFF files and they get read automatically. You just need to set up how you want them to be read. And then they are composed into PDF the way you want it.
Do you want me to make a shared folder?
You can, but maybe that might take too much time. I don't think it's... Did you set it up?
No, I can in like second while you're talking.
Okay, so you can transfer some. And I'll continue talking. We've set up our workflow in Zagreb so that people from the outside can access files at any time in the process, because they are immediately transferred to a file, cloud file storage, and then people have accounts to access them, so they can edit starting from the JPEG, or they can edit starting from the TIFF, or they can access finished files. We have a friend who's very much the guy who initiated or pushed us to do this, who lives in London, Tony Krug, some of you might know him. And he was helping out. He would pull the files from his home in London and then finish them and leave them there for somebody else to upload. And then the final step would be that we typically enter this into Calibra, do the metadata, and then upload it to Library Genesis and Argo. Okay, did you manage?
Pasting.
Clock sticking.
Okay.
Yeah, almost there.
As I said, Dubravka and myself have written a manual, and in that manual, everything is pretty much described, what we've said at greater length. You can either get it at Memory of the World or here on this computer, so just put put in your memory drive and transfer it to your. It's still in development. Let's see, where did Marcell put it? Where did you put it? Where did you put it?
It was already up.
Okay, so
Just to go inside.
this side.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Well, you say open and it will do. Okay. Select. And it will then enter the files and process them. Okay, I didn't have anything else to say, but I can answer any questions.
Just like a footnote that I yesterday said that maybe. So once you start digitizing book, you start looking at the graphic design of books completely differently. So like some things become that look so like oh, this is so cool, becomes so annoying, like page numbers on the middle of the on the margin on the middle. Then like you have like it decreases viewable like but you have to select this in content and all this. So it's like really completely different view on what is a good graphic design when you start from this point to end.